Hey everyone, welcome back to NDC, and today we're taking a quick look at in-app purchases for your app. We're going to be using RevenueCat today. So if you've ever tried setting up in-app purchases in iOS, you know that it can get messy fast. Apple's APIs are a little bit low level, subscription logic can be a little bit tricky to manage, and keeping track of receipts, sandbox versus production, and App Store quirks takes some serious effort. This is why I would suggest using RevenueCat. I'm by no means sponsored by them, but I do find that using RevenueCat takes a lot of the heavy lifting off, and you can start for free. They do just kind of have a model where if you're earning a certain amount of money and you kind of go over a threshold, I think it's $2,500 a month. We can double check that. Let's see, I think there's a pricing tab here. For the normal free thing, up to 2.5K in MTR you have for free, and then afterwards there is like a pro plan, and there's even a little like kind of pricing calculator so you can define your monthly income. So let's say I had an app that was bringing in 50,000 a month. I wish pro plan would only be costing 500 a month. So that 50K, yeah, you have taxes and whatnot, but it's kind of a drop in the bucket. Otherwise, up to 2.5K, absolutely free. So it's not very egregious, and for the amount of heavy lifting it does, worth it. So we have one simple SDK. It works with consumables, subscriptions, and entitlements. It tracks user status across devices, syncs with StoreKit and AppStore Connect, and is a built-in dashboard for analytics and debugging. So compared to only using StoreKit, you have those raw APIs, no dashboard, you manage everything, and some other third-party server setups can be a little bit costly, and especially if you're an indie developer, might be a little bit overkill as well. RevenueCat kind of sits right in the middle, perfect for indie devs, hobby projects, and even production-ready apps. It's what I use and would recommend, and we'll be going through RevenueCat today. So if you don't already have an account, I would definitely go through the sign up process. There is kind of like this little intro survey as well as like the first time setup, but we'll be going over all those steps. I think there's a little skip button there. You can kind of skip to the overview if you'd like. Otherwise, all the steps that I'm covering are essentially just going to be through the projects tab. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves. I'm going to really quickly create a SwiftUI demo. However, I assume most people already are going to be adding this to an existing app. So I'm just going to call this one IAP demo SwiftUI. So we're also going to be exploring using the StoreKit for local testing, which is also great because when we are using external APIs like RevenueCat, we will have to go through the test process, but adding a StoreKit file will allow us to test it locally before we push and use the API. So we're going to create a new empty file from template here, and we want to find the StoreKit configuration file. Kind of looks like a little app store icon. Let's go ahead and add it, and we can give it a name. I'm just going to call this one IAP demo. And you can even sync this file with an app in AppStore Connect if you'd like. So if you've already even set up those in-app purchases, you can check this button here and you can actually grab those in-app purchases. I'm going to be making them on AppStore Connect later, and we'll just copy and paste the kind of different product IDs. Okay, let's go ahead and make 2 sample products. If you want to use these for your real products, absolutely feel free to. So in the bottom left here, we should see the add StoreKit item. So on the plus button, we can choose to add consumable. So this would be things like lives or, kind of something that you're using in the game, but not keeping. Non-consumable, this would be things like skins, things that the player gets to keep. We have a non-renewing subscription and an auto-renewing subscription. So if you do have any subscriptions you're going to be including, you can choose either. I'm going to do a couple examples. We'll do the consumable, and we'll have this be for some coins. So we need to give it a reference name. I'm going to call this one coins_pack. And then we need to give it a product ID, and we will want to sync this product ID up with the one on AppStore Connect. I'm going to call this coins_pack .ndc sample. Okay, there we go. And we can edit these things in our StoreKit file if we need to. We could also assign it a price. For my coins pack, I'm just going to keep it at $0.99. When you're doing the testing through Sandbox or through this StoreKit file, you're not actually going to be charged the money, so don't worry. You can also choose to add an image or any localization as well. We're going to add a non-renewing subscription. You can do an auto-renewing if you want. And we'll call this one Pro Monthly. I'm going to follow the exact same kind of status and style above here. So Pro Monthly .ndc sample. You might want to kind of have the dot be related to your app or your app name or your kind of brand. And then for the price, let's set this as $9.99. So now we actually need to connect this store file to our debug for testing. So the way we can do that is we need to go to the very top of our Xcode here, and we're going to click on product. I think in older versions of Xcode, this might have also been called project. We can see here we have the scheme option, and we're going to go to the edit scheme. And under the options tab, we have a StoreKit configuration, and we can see our IAP demo, or whatever you called it, .StoreKit. And we should be good to go to close that. So this will enable local testing with fake purchases inside Xcode. If it works here, it should work for RevenueCat. But when we do submit our IAPs to the App Store for review, and when we're pushing to live, it will have to work in Sandbox. Working in RevenueCat will allow us to work in Sandbox eventually. Okay, the next step we have to do is we need to add RevenueCat to our project so we can add the package dependencies, and I will put this URL in the description below. Otherwise, if we go to RevenueCat under the Help tab, and I believe it's under the Documentation, you'll want to go to the RevenueCat SDK, install iOS and Apple platforms, and right down here with the Swift Package Manager, go ahead and copy and paste that in here. Add that package. And we'll want the RevenueCat and the UI. So let's go ahead and apply that to our apps and add those packages. Should be good to go. Package dependency. It might take a little bit long on your first build after you add a package. Totally normal. In our app file, we're also going to want to import RevenueCat. And that's how you can also check to make sure that it's actually working. If the RevenueCat pops up in the autofill, yeah, you should be good to go. Under the structure, we're going to add an initializer. Don't need anything within the brackets. We're going to add a brace. And this is how we're going to be looking at the purchases. And we're going to reference the dot configure with. We're going to change this to be with API key. And then here, this is where your public API key goes. I'll be showing you how to access that when we start working with the in-app purchases in RevenueCat. So when we are working in RevenueCat with the in-app purchase items, you have a couple choices. My recommendation is to set up everything on AppStore Connect first, and then adjust it and kind of sync it with RevenueCat. This way you don't have to kind of do everything multiple times. So let's head on over to AppStore Connect. I'm going to establish an app for this one. So let's do new app. And we'll just call this one RevenueCat Friend. For the bundle ID, there's our IAP demo or whatever your app is. You may have already have set this up. Let's go to English and then the SKU. I'm just going to do the RC demo.ndc. Make sure we have our platform, and let's go ahead and create that. All right, so to create new in-app purchases on our AppStore Connect page here, we're going to scroll down on the left side to in-app purchases, and we'll want to create them with either the plus button or this create button here. We have the type. We can have consumable or non-consumable. So for our first one, we're going to make consumable. I'm going to open up our StoreKit here, and I'm just going to copy and paste this information in here, just so it's the exact same for testing. Again, you may have already set these up and synced it with your StoreKit project. Okay, we need to set up some different parameters. So we need availability. I'm just going to make this available everywhere. And we also need the pricing. I'm going to set this to be 99 cents, and it should kind of update for all different regions. You can override it if you really like. All right, let's add an AppStore localization. So I'm just going to do English Canada, display name. I'm going to say coin pack. And then for the description, grants, users, power coins, right? Whatever this does in your app, include the description there. You'll also need to include some review information like a screenshot. So what I would suggest doing is running your app, and wherever that in-app purchase currently lives, taking a screenshot of the simulator and uploading it, and also including any review notes. Because I'm not actually submitting this, I'm just going to put like a fake screenshot in there, and then you'll want to include some notes. You can even kind of tell them what it's about, use to purchase player power, blah, 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 whatever else you want to include there. So once that's all good and done, make sure you don't spoof a screenshot like I did. I'm not actually submitting this. You'll see that you have the ready to submit, which is great. So when we do submit our app to AppStore Connect, they will review it. Let's go back to our in-app purchases. If we want to do a subscription, we can see under the monetization tab, subscriptions. We have subscription groups. Let's go ahead and set up our reference name as well. Let's go ahead and create it. So pro monthly, and then our product ID. This is apparently already being used. Oh my goodness, okay. There's no way the sample 111 is being taken. No way, no how. Okay, let's go ahead and update it over here. That's crazy, that's crazy. Okay, we could choose the duration, so let's make this a 1 month sub. You can even enable family sharing. Same thing here, we're gonna do the availability and the different prices. So I believe we had this as $9.99. Pretty sure, yep, $9.99. Go ahead, next. For the localization, I'll just do pro sub, grants pro access to users. Right, you'll want to put a lot more thought into the name and localization than I am. Again, you will just need that screenshot. So make sure you upload one and include any notes that might be relevant to the review process, right? I like to say more details is better than, not enough details here. Okay, once you've set up your in-app purchases in RevenueCat, again, the kind of first steps process is really good at leading this, but we'll want to create a new project, and I'm just going to give this one RC demo. I would name it whatever your app is, maybe a code or, your personal name, and we'll want to create a new app from the App Store. For the bundle ID, this is whatever our bundle ID actually is in Xcode. So if we go to our app file here, there's our bundle identifier. Let's go ahead and grab that. And then you want to set your AppStore Connect shared secret. Now is this little kind of information tab. Essentially, we're going to want to go to AppStore Connect. On our app page, we need to go to the app information. And we're going to scroll down pretty much near the bottom, and there is an app-specific shared secret. Press Manage. You're going to want to generate that. You can go ahead and copy and paste it. Set the secret. Paste it on in there. Now, I already have some existing keys for the in-app purchase configuration, but I'll show you how to do it. So under AppStore Connect, if we go to our Users and Access, under the Integration tab, so what one did we want here? We wanted the in-app purchase key config. So go to the in-app purchases, should be the second key. You can see I have a couple different keys here. You'll just want to create the key. You're going to give it a name. It's then going to generate a file. You're going to want to take that file and you're going to drag and drop it on in there, and it should autofill the key ID. Otherwise, the key ID is available in this table. And the issuer ID you can see is right here under this little blurb. I'm going to go ahead and copy that as well. Because I already have these, I'm just going to use the existing key. I'll just use it from this one. So drag and drop that file in. It should grab the key ID. Otherwise, it's in the table. And the issuer ID is also on that page. All right, and for the AppStore Connect API key, it's the exact same process. I would create an API key called something like RevenueCat. You're going to once again get a file. We have our issuer ID, we have our key ID. You're going to take that file and you're going to drag and drop it in here. I'm going to just reuse my existing key because I'm lazy. For the vendor number, you can click this Payments and Financial Reports option and it'll take you to a page in the very top left. And it's like really hard to see, it's kind of grayed out. There is a vendor number and you can paste that information within here. Just a note for the 2 files that you download from AppStore Connect, back them up as you'll never be able to download them again. You would have to generate a new key. Okay, let's go ahead and save our changes once that's good to go. App created successfully. Woo! If you're missing anything or there's an error, it'd probably tell you why. Just double check all that information and that you've uploaded the files correctly. And the reason we do this first is because now RevenueCat is talking to AppStore Connect. So let's go ahead and create some new products. And we've already done most of the work. So under the products, I'm going to go ahead and press new, and then we can import our products. Might take a second. We can see the products that we want to import. Let's go ahead and add those. Oh my goodness, I'm a bozo. You might have noticed this when I was adding the things. For the in-app purchase, I called it pro monthly instead of the coins. I actually copied the wrong value. Okay, hold on. So I don't mess this up. Consumable. I'm going to grab the right reference name. That's pretty funny. So yeah, I'm out here saying, hey, make sure you copy and paste the right thing. I'm like, there's no way someone took that. I'm pretty sure I said there's no way someone took that bundle ID, but it's because I was creating it for the in-app purchase. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm just gonna set this up again real quick. That's pretty funny. Okay, now I have the coin pack ready to submit. That makes so much sense. Okay, hold on. Let's go ahead and add products again. There's the coin pack. Okay, there we go. I was so confused. All right, we don't want this monthly one anymore. We might just need to fix the metadata on the subscription. A screenshot might be still uploading. We'll then need to attach an entitlement to our different products. So we can go to the entitlements tab. Let's go ahead and create a new one, and we can add different identifiers, and this is going to be used in our app to determine the level of access. So I'm going to call this one Pro User. Access to all things, right? Whatever that kind of actually gives them. We'll then go ahead and attach this to our Pro Monthly 1 subscription. All right, and if you need to add a new entitlement, you'll just hit the back button and press new. So you'll want to create one for your coins. The coin purchaser, purchased coins. And we'll go ahead and attach it to the product of the coin pack. Perfect. And you can add as many different products to these different entitlements as you'd like. So if you have multiple subscriptions, multiple kind of in-app purchases, you can kind of create them and associate them within these different entitlements. But we'll want these identifiers for later. Offerings, I do recommend adding it. Just do default. We'll also want a name. I'm going to call this one default. We're going to be testing in the sandbox environment with TestFlight. Remember how we set up entitlements, our products, and then we kind of set up a default for our offerings. So on our offerings, you can see here, oh, we have a little caution sign, add packages. Let's go ahead and add the package, and you can choose the different identifiers. So this would be good if you have anything renewing. Otherwise, I like to just kind of do custom. We can even just call it Pro, IAPs, any descriptions. This is going to be used for internal purposes. And then you'll want to select the products. So if you have the coin pack, if you're doing something that has the monthly Pro subscription, right? You can also have multiple identifier and packages in here. So if we had the coin pack and then we had our monthly subscription, we can attach that one too. Then we can select the monthly, and then we can go to the top right and save. So you will need to fix those offerings for sandbox testing. I'm going to show you how to handle the purchases and the subscription. It's totally up to you. I know everyone's apps are unique and different, so you'll just want to apply the same core concepts here. So I'm going to create two state private variables. Something I'd also recommend doing is saving any purchases under Swift data. This way you can also back it up with iCloud. That's just my 2 cents. So for this one, this will be customer info, which is actually going to conform to customer info. We may need to import RevenueCat before we forget at the top of the file here. There we go, our customer info has updated, and we're going to add a question mark here as well. I'm just going to add some text here so all those billions of errors go away. We're going to create another state private variable. And this one is going to be for our, are they pro? So we can say is pro, which is going to be a Boolean, and we'll set this to be false off rip. Lowercase f on false. Been working in Python too much lately. All right, and for my app, I'm just going to have a button that allows people to buy coins. So we can add a button. We'll say buy coins. Add our brace here. For my purposes, when I press this button, I'm going to call upon a function of purchase, which we haven't made yet, but we will in just a few moments. And we're actually going to include some parameters here. So like, what do we want to purchase? Well, we can look for the product ID there. So we'll be passing along a product ID. And for this case, it's going to be a string, and we should be looking for the exact product ID. So if we go here to our coins pack this time, yeah, that's right, I selected the right one. We're going to copy and paste the product ID here. Again, this should match whatever is on your AppStore Connect. Wrap that up as a string. Now we will get an error because it's like, hey, I don't know where purchase is. What are you trying to do, man? Before the very last brace here, let's go ahead and create that function of purchase. We're going to pass through a product ID, as we've already kind of said, and that is going to conform to a string value. We're going to then take that string and run it through RevenueCat's API, which will also work for our local testing. We're going to first start off with a task and then go immediately into a do. And we're going to look for the products. So this is going to kind of parse all of our store products, which is built into RevenueCat. And this is going to equal the await purchases dot shared dot products. We'll add our brackets and then our square brackets because we have like kind of a list here of product ID. We'll then create a guardlet for the product to equal the products dot first else. Add a brace here, and we'll print out that we couldn't find the product, so product not found. And you know, we can even interpolate the product ID, which will be great for the print statement. We'll go ahead and return. You know, it's a good idea to pass through this product ID just in case we're looking for it. We can double check our AppStore file and be like, oh yeah, it's not coins_pack123, right? This will help us with some debugging later on. Outside of our else brace here, we're going to create our result. So let result equal try await purchases dot shared dot purchase. We'll then be looking at the product, which is just going to conform to the product. We also want some customer info, and this is going to equal the result dot customer info. Again, RevenueCat does a lot of the heavy lifting. We can also check if the user is pro or not with our monthly subscription. So we'll say our is pro equals the customer info question mark dot entitlements dot active dot contains where. We're gonna go ahead and add our squiggly brace. So we kind of have the bracket for where, adding that brace. And this is where we're going to be checking to make sure it's active. So we'll use our $.0.value dot is active. We'll then kind of provide the fallback here of it being false. So if it is active, it's going to do that check and be like, hey, yeah, that is active. Otherwise, if it's not, well, it's false. We'll then add a catch at the end of our do. Let's just double check it is this one. Yep. So we'll add our catch. Ooh, Xcode's taking a second there. And we'll print out, failed to purchase. We can even include the error. Now, because we are testing locally, we might get some of these errors, which might just be like, hey, I can't connect to the server. We're not using Sandbox. I'll show you how to fix that with TestFlight. Okay, we should actually be able to test our in-app purchase. We'll test out our subscription as well. Real quick, in our public API key, to grab that, we're going to go back to RevenueCat. We're going to go to the API keys, and you'll see that you have the SDK API keys, show key. You'll press this, and you'll be able to copy that and paste that key in that slot there. Okay, we cannot test the local StoreKit file in the preview. Let's go ahead and run this in the simulator real quick. Okay, let's go ahead and press our buy coins button. You will also see the console logs here will kind of help us out, and it'll also give you any kind of debug errors or anything like this. All of the different debug logs from RevenueCat. Another thing I appreciate about it, it was set up with the developer in mind. And we can see here info purchasing product, and we have a little, let me move the simulator over. We have a little Xcode window popping up. For testing purchases only, we will not be charged for purchasing this item. Let's go ahead and purchase. We'll get a little pating. Our purchase was successful. This is just for the local testing. We can see here, transaction, yada, yada, yada. We even have the receipt being handled for us with a huge ID. Oh my goodness. But we can see that we have purchased the product. Now, in my app, I'm not displaying the coins. I'm not actually adding the coins. In that functionality of, actually accepting that those coins have been accepted, make sure you're then saying, hey, this has been approved. Add those 10 coins to the user's account or whatever you're doing for your in-app purchase. But it has worked. That's awesome. Let's go ahead and test the subscription real quick as well. So outside the function of our purchase, we're also going to make a function to just check the subscription status. We can call it check sub status. That should be pretty good. Don't need anything within the parameters. And from here, we're essentially going to be doing our task again, followed by our do. We're going to be looking at some info. Let's have this equal a try await And look at our purchases.shared from the customer info. We're going to be looking at the isPro, and we're going to look at the info.entitlements, and we want the active contains where one more time. We're going to add our brace, and just like above, we're going to do our $0.value.isActive, and then outside the do, we'll add a catch, brace, and from here we'll just print that we failed to fetch customer info. Always feel free to interpolate the error. Logs will save a lot of headache and time. So let's go ahead and create another button here. And this one will be maybe subscribe monthly and add a brace. Then we'll have the purchase with the product ID. And let's go ahead and, save ourselves some headaches. Go ahead and grab that ID with a crazy amount of ones. I think I set up a couple of these. Let's go ahead and add that purchase ID. And then we're going to want to check the subscription status. Now, you can kind of do this any way you'd like. I would probably do a on appear, maybe even have a button to do this. So what we can do is add another button, or you could do it when the view loads with an on appear. And we'll call this one check sub status. We'll add a brace and we'll run our check sub status function. Okay, let's also add some text to kind of tell the user if they're subscribed or not. So we can actually probably use a ternary operator for this because we're using true and false. So that should be pretty easy. So within the brackets, we'll do isPro, do our little question mark for our ternary operator, and we'll say pro user. We'll use our colon to simulate the else, and then we'll say free user. And let's also have our foreground style be determined so we could have it be green or red depending. And just like above, we'll have our isPro. We'll have it be .green. Otherwise, it would be .red. All right, let's run it and test it out. All right, let's go ahead and subscribe monthly. Let's go ahead and purchase that. Again, this is totally free. You can see we've purchased the product, and we can see it has already updated to be pro user, but we can always check that sub status. Just wanted to show you how to kind of check, just in case you're looking for these things when people are logging in, kind of displaying it on their profile. It's very easy to do. We've done a lot already. We've added our in-app purchase to the App Store. We've added that connection with RevenueCat. We've confirmed it works locally. We're ready for the App Store, right? Well, not quite yet. Not quite yet. So when we are reviewing and submitting our application, we also have to submit those in-app purchases alongside them so they can be tested by Apple. Now, Apple won't test locally. They test on real devices using the Sandbox environment. And this is where a lot of people do get stuck, unfortunately. The first time I tried in-app purchases, I gave up because I was like, I cannot figure this out. But after researching and testing, it really comes down to adding your build to TestFlight and testing in the Sandbox environment there. So I would take whatever app you're working on and one you've just confirmed works locally, as I've kind of shown you here with the StoreKit file, and you're going to want to submit it to TestFlight. I do have a TestFlight video. It's very short. Essentially, you'll distribute this app to AppStore Connect. Once it's uploaded, you'll be able to see it on TestFlight, and I'm actually just going to swap over to another build. So you'll see it on TestFlight. You'll then need to add an internal testing team as well as an external testing team here. Once you've added the external testing team, that's when you could submit it for the very light TestFlight review. Once that's been done, you'll be able to download it on TestFlight, use a Sandbox account, and verify that your in-app purchases work with RevenueCat. So this is the part where you might have to do a little bit of waiting after you've submitted your app to TestFlight. As a note, if we go to this one's in-app purchases over here, your in-app purchases must be in the ready to submit or waiting for review status to be tested on Sandbox. So if you're missing any metadata, double, triple check that you have everything filled out under the in-app purchase. All right, we are back a couple days later in the future. But I guess if I'm recording videos and you're watching it, it's always in the past. Our TestFlight build has been approved. We're able to test it on Sandbox. Real quick, you might want to go to AppStore Connect, My Apps, go under whatever your app is, Under the in-app purchases tab, select the in-app purchase, and in the sidebar, verify it's attached to the right app version, even in TestFlight. Okay, so we will need some Sandbox user accounts. So if you haven't already, go to Users and Access. And you'll see the Sandbox tab at the top. So to create a new Sandbox account, you can see I already have some here. We can press the plus button. We'll need to provide it with a first name and last name. So I'll just do Bob the Builder. We'll then want to include an email address. Now, just a note for this email address, it can't be one that has a current Apple ID. Don't use the one associated with anybody's Apple ID, including your own. You also need to include a password because we have to sign into this Sandbox account on our device. You can also choose the country or region. So for this one, I'm going to go ahead and do United States. You can go ahead and create that. Just as a note, you can also click on any of these users and you can even choose the monthly or even like, I guess, hourly renewal rate of any subscriptions. You can even test interrupting purchases for the user to kind of handle those flows and make sure if anything happens when people are purchasing, their internet drops, etc., you can handle those cases. Okay, when using Sandbox, we do have to use the actual devices. So you can see here, I have my iPad and I'm sharing it on the screen. We do need to enable and sign into that Sandbox account we just created. So in the settings, you should be able to scroll all the way down to the developer tab here. And on the developer tab, at the very bottom, you can see the Sandbox Apple account option. Let's go ahead and sign on in with the email we just created. If it asks you for two-factor authentication, I would go ahead and do the do not upgrade under other options. And if you can see here, this account will only be used for testing your in-app purchases in Sandbox at the very bottom here. So we also need to sign into our Sandbox account for in-app purchase testing through the App Store as well. So you're going to want to click on the name that you have in the top left of your settings on your iPad, and you're going to click on the media and purchases and sign out. You'll then want to sign in again. And now you're going to sign in with your Sandbox Apple ID. So I'll hit not my person. And let's go ahead and add our testing again. As a note, you can stay signed into your main iCloud account. Your device won't lose contacts, messages, etc. Sandbox Apple IDs don't require that email verification as long as you don't sign up for the 2FA. And you won't be charged. All purchases are simulated. Next, we'll go into TestFlight and download our app. All right, so make sure you notify your testers, and that should update the status to be testing. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the link for myself. You shouldn't need to add your own tester to the TestFlight account here, especially if you do have a public link. All right, and I have my TestFlight downloaded, ready to test. I put in my link here, and we can see that it's asking me to install the test app. There's even my little note of what to test, etc. All right, let's go ahead and install that. Okay, let's go ahead and open our installed app here. So we can even see, hey, from the developer, what I want you to test. Let's go ahead and start testing. So in this app, you can customize your icon. There's a little shop button in the top right. Okay, and now I'm gonna try to make a purchase, unlock. This is gonna ask me to sign into my Apple account again. We're gonna use our fake ID. Well, I guess Sandbox account. Fake ID sounds a little bit much. Okay, and we can see our TestFlight simulated purchase, one-time charge, account. Let's go ahead and purchase. Also wants me to put my password in again. And you can even see beta testers aren't charged for this in-app purchase. If you signed in with your actual ID, the purchase will fail. It won't work for any Sandbox or TestFlight builds. There we go, our purchase went through. You're all set, your purchase was successful. We'll hit OK. And we can see here on our RevenueCat dashboard at the very bottom, we had my spoof examples from a couple days ago with the local testing, but now we also see the summer emoji pack a few seconds ago and our revenue of 99 cents. Obviously, we're not earning that money, but you can use this Sandbox data by toggling the Sandbox data in the very top right of RevenueCat, and you should be able to see all of those fake Sandbox purchases. And we can see that it is indeed talking back and forth to RevenueCat. And that's it. You've just added real production ready in-app purchases to your SwiftUI app using RevenueCat. From setting up your product in AppStore Connect, integrating RevenueCat, and even testing in Sandbox with TestFlight, you're ready to ship. RevenueCat handles the receipt validation, entitlement management. Purchases are testable with a Sandbox Apple ID. no real billing required. If this tutorial helped, hit that like button, subscribe for more app dev deep dives, and let me know in the comments if you'd like a follow-up on things like paywall, custom design. I will be uploading the kind of sample RevenueCat simple UI that we built at the first portion of this video. If you do want to take a look at any of the code, if you're struggling a little bit, that is available on my GitHub pages linked in the description below. Otherwise, dream big, code bigger, and have an amazing rest of your day. And I hope you have, success with your apps and you get some, some moolah from your in-app purchases. Otherwise, take care.